Hello everyone and welcome back to another summary video where I will discuss episode 7 of Last One Standing, the survival competition where 14 survivalists battle it out for the title of Last One Standing and $100,000. Before I continue, link below are some surveys. There's the Largados y Pelados XL survey and the Last One Standing survey. Maybe I'll use some of the popular votes on the Last One Standing survey to make a wish list. We shall see. But going on to the episode, we start out and Kai and Patrick are processing their Niala so they could preserve it because they don't want the meat to go bad. Gary calls Patrick selfish. We move on to the next day, and Jeff and Dan are hunting. And while they are hunting, Dan successfully gets a Niala. So Dan gets the second big hunt of the season, the second big hunt of Last One Standing. So good for him. His PSR goes to a 9.8 by the end of the episode. Spoiler alerts. So he is doing really well, and Jeff and Trish get to also share in the Niala meat. Dan is a very kind gentleman. Although later on in the episode, we see that Jeff and Trish have some stew that causes them some digestive issues, and Trish blames Dan for it. Trish and Jeff are very anti-Dan. They call him Sticky Fingers on the meat of the hunt that Dan got, but that is neither here nor there. And the heat is mentioned quite a bit, and Gary gets heat exhaustion while sitting in his blind trying to get some more food. And luckily he is able to bounce back. There was a little bit of tension on whether he will be medically tapped or not. But Gary is fine. Everyone is fine. After Jeff and Trish kind of have their moment during the night after eating the stew, they're fine. And they're stewing on their negative emotions towards Dan. So will that rivalry play out? We'll see. And so on day 26... or 27, I believe 26, the survivalists are given a scroll that says the next night they are going to be doing another individual elimination challenge, but first they have to build a torch that will help them see during the elimination challenge. So I previously said that I think day 30 they're going to move to the next zone, but they had a 2-day migration that happened on day 27, and then day 28 they'll get to the next zone, but that's next episode. But after they get the scrolls, everyone has to go and make a torch, and Jeff goes to try to find a good handle for his torch, but he sees that Trish and Dan are doing something similar, so he breaks off from the group, and then Dan breaks off from the group, so Trish stays in the shelter to try to make a torch of her own, while the other teams stick together to kind of brainstorm the best way to make a torch. Kai and Patrick stick together, and Kai has experience making torches. Gary, Dani, and Fernando stick together to brainstorm their torches. Gary knows how to make the torches, so he got the materials while Dani and Fernando rendered the fat for the torch that they were going to use. And so after they all build their torches and the next day happens, they begin their 5-mile trek to a massive cave. And later that night they have their elimination challenge, but before that they have to give up all of their survival items. There's 4 bows, a pot of salt, 2 fishing assets, cast net, and some other stuff. I believe there's 10 survival assets. The first place finisher will get the choice of 3 of the survival assets. Second place gets 2, while through 7th gets 1. And so the challenge is using their torches to create light. They have to build a figure 4 trap. They first have to get all their sticks together, then they have to make their trap, then they have to trigger the trap, and then they have to reassemble their trap for them to complete the challenge. And so the challenge starts. Gary and Kai are neck and neck for first. It looks as though Kai will be getting first, but unfortunately she has difficulty reassembling her figure 4 trap, and Gary takes first place, Kai takes second. It doesn't really show how long in between everyone finishes, but it seemed after Gary and Kai finished, there was a lot of time that passed. But after Gary and Kai finish, Patrick finishes, then Dan, then Jeff, then Dani, and then it's a race between Fernando and Trish. And Trish manages to set up her figure 4 trap and trigger it, but unfortunately had some difficulty putting it back together. And Fernando finishes 7th, which means that Trish has been eliminated from the competition. Oh no! She brought a lot of skills with her. She did the challenge on a rebroken finger. She managed to make it pretty far. And I think that she was a good competitor, and she also brought in some drama. So it's unfortunate to see her go. After that, everyone chooses their survival items. Gary and Jeff struck a deal during the competition where Jeff offered Gary whichever survival asset he chose, plus half the meat cash that Jeff had in exchange for a bow. So Gary chose 2 bows and the salt. And then Jeff chose the cast net for his survival item. And so Jeff gave the cast net and half of his meat to Gary, and Gary gave him a bow. And then Kai got a bow as well. Patrick got a bow. Dan got the fishing asset, or the hooks. I unfortunately cannot remember what Kai's second item was, but people seem somewhat happy with what was happening, but you never know. No one's ever happy in these things. It's all editing. And so, unfortunately, Trish leaves the challenge, and we are down to the final 7. According to the summary for next week, someone is medically tapped from the challenge, and it's interesting to see how many people are eliminated via the challenges and how many are taken out by the environment. I think the group challenge where they had to chop down a tree, and then Gary, Dani, and Lindsay were in the elimination challenges. The only time there was an elimination challenge that way. Everything else was individual or tapping out due to the environment. And so 7 individuals remain. Who will be eliminated next week? We shall see. Thank you all so much for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Make sure to comment nice things, please. I would really appreciate that. And click on the next video. It's mine. I hope you all have a wonderful day/night, and I will be doing other things. Okay, bye-bye now. Bye-bye.